Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Visit scdheck.gov for an updated list of testing sites and important information on how to protect yourself, your family, and friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities. In it together and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, presenting Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. The City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia. Log on to columbiasc.net/OBO. Agape Counseling and Training Services. Call 803-779-2777 for licensed professionals of counselors and social workers helping families, engaged and married couples, and individuals of all ages gain an understanding of all aspects of their lives. If you're having a challenge coping with COVID, contact Agape Counseling and Training Services at agapects.com. And Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. Coping with COVID, brought to you by SCDHEC. In it together, the Diabetes Advisory Council, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Center, and Palmetto Media Connections.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Happy Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Listen, it is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we're talking to Taylor Wilson with the Alzheimer's Association. Check out this fascinating conversation about the condition, the symptoms, surprising information about who and how may get it, and great information and resources for caregivers, family members, and your loved one. Plus, how you should handle your loved one based on the weather. That and more next on Coping with COVID. But first, your COVID community updates. Coronavirus numbers in South Carolina have doubled since the start of the school year just a few weeks ago. SCDHEC reported over 4,000 new COVID cases, and schools account for over 3,000 of those, mostly students. Less than half of residents in the Palmetto State are vaccinated. Yet another school district has decided to go virtual. Clarington School District 2 is moving classes online for at least 1 week beginning September 7th. Now, that decision was made to help control the virus inside schools. The district will communicate with parents via email with more information. Finally, if your child receives free or reduced lunch at school, you may be eligible for hundreds of dollars in food benefits. DSS says federal funds up to $375 per child will be allocated based on last year's K-12 school year. Now, who's eligible? Students, including those who graduated or received I thought we had a graphic. Students including those who graduated, who received PEBT the last month of the previous school year. Students who were eligible for free or reduced price school meals during the previous school year. Students who are newly eligible for free or reduced price school meals, including those who submitted meal applications during the school months, and students are not eligible if they don't receive free or reduced price meals or not enrolled in schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program, and students who were homeschooled for the 2021 school year. Now, you will receive funds on your SNAP card. This Friday, Conley Ann Ragley with DSS will join us to talk more about it on Coping with COVID. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and location for COVID testings in and around South Carolina. Visit scdheck.gov for more information. COVID vaccines are also being handled at the VA for all veterans. Check the screen for more information about COVID vaccinations for those who are veterans. Also, several retail outlets are offering COVID vaccinations. You can see information about Kroger pharmacies. Also, CVS pharmacies are offering COVID vaccinations. Don't miss your shots. You can get free rides on the Comet bus system to get your COVID vaccination. And if you or someone you know is elderly and having some challenges making your COVID vaccine appointment, Get Set Up is offering free help to help you make your COVID vaccination appointment. FEMA is still offering funeral reimbursements. If you lost a loved one due to COVID, you can see the information on the screen, how you can apply to get funeral expenses paid by by FEMA. The South Carolina Bar Association and SC Legal Services have a free toll-free number and website if you want information and resources available to help you pay your mortgage. And there are several other rental assistance programs, including Richland County Rental Assistance Program. Visit richlandcountysc.gov. Lexington County has a bill assistance program. Also, Dominion Energy and SC Housing has bill assistance programs for rent and utilities. SC Housing has a frontline workers home buying assistance program. And also, if you or someone you know is having a challenge coping with COVID, the South Carolina Department of Mental Health has launched SC Hopes. This is an online 24-hour phone line to help you cope with COVID. A couple of other things going on in the city. Tomorrow, there's a blood drive for sickle cell. It's happening at the Red Cross. We talked to the ladies with the Nurses Association last week, and they told us about this great blood drive that's going on. And then day 2 of the 4-day no judge, no jail event done by the solicitor's office. Attorney Byron Gibson also told us about that a couple of weeks ago. The first day was yesterday. It's going on again today, and then next Tuesday and Wednesday at First Baptist Church in Columbia, South Carolina. Several job openings in the state. The United States Postal Service has several job openings. You can apply online, and you can also go to several different places that are available for you to find out about the United States Postal Service and their job openings. Also, R1, Richland School District 1 has bus driving positions open. You can go to that website, apply for those jobs. There's actually a $500 signing bonus and a $1,000 signing bonus for teachers. For more information, you can see the website and the information on the screen. I'm Trey Taylor, and you are watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. Want to say hi to Mitchell, Peace, Joy, Jen. Thank you, beautiful, so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. You're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. I'm Trey Taylor, and today is Wellness Wednesday. In it together, SC and the great information the In It Together Facebook page has, including information about a diabetes prevention program, resources, tips, recipes, all types of great resources on the In It Together Facebook page. Listen, we're also streaming live on the Tailor Made Production page on Facebook. That's the home of Coping with COVID. Please go over there. Again, hit like and share and follow, and not only receive notifications on when you can watch Coping with COVID, which is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and of course, first Monday with our comedian George Wallace. You can also get all types of great resources right there on the Tailor Made Production page. Now, we're also streaming live on YouTube. Want to say hi to all of you YouTubers. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button so that you can get a notification on when we're going live also, and see all of the past episodes of Coping with COVID. Also, we have a presence on Instagram and on Twitter. Today, we're talking about Alzheimer's. S. Taylor Wilson with the Alzheimer's Association joins us. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. The first thing I want to ask is, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? A lot of times, those two terms get used in the same sense, but they are really different.
They are. So dementia is an umbrella term that describes cognitive decline. Cognitive decline meaning not just memory loss, but loss of spatial reasoning, loss of understanding objects, things like that. It's a label that, if you think about like an umbrella, it's caused by different things. So different spokes of the umbrella would be Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, which is linked to heart disease, things like frontal temporal lobe, which could be related to any sort of traumatic brain injury. Dementia can be caused by a very wide variety of different diseases and causes, but dementia itself is a syndrome and a collection of symptoms.
Right. Okay. So with Alzheimer's, tell us about what are some of the indicators, the symptoms of Alzheimer's in particular.
So Alzheimer's in particular is caused by something called beta amyloid and plaque and tau tangles. So beta amyloid
Way
plaque.
over our heads, girl. Way over our heads.
And the reason that I explain this is because it actually comes back to the new treatment that's been approved.
Okay.
Is that Alzheimer's hallmarks specifically are beta amyloid plaques and tau tangles, which are like ivy that grow into your brain. So imagine your brain is an azalea bush, and ivy starts to grow in your azalea bush. You have a beautiful full azalea bush that has blossoms and lots of leaves. And then all of a sudden you notice it starts to thin out. All of a sudden it's not looking as vibrant. It doesn't bloom as often. That's essentially what that beta and that tau does to the brain. And we know that with Alzheimer's, there's actually brain shrinkage. The weight of the brain of a healthy person when they pass away and the weight of a brain of somebody who's passed away from Alzheimer's is significantly lighter. So, because the brain is an incredible machine, we know now that people could potentially have Alzheimer's starting to develop in their 40s and 50s, but not show symptoms until they're in their 70s and 80s.
Oh, wow.
Because the brain is still making those connections. So Alzheimer's is a very particular disease that causes dementia. And it's one of those that when we're looking at trying to understand the disease better, we have to go in and really look at what we know about the brain and that ivy that's growing up in it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the new treatment, and we want to get to that a little bit later on in the interview. But something you also said made me kind of perk up. You said that you could be really developing Alzheimer's very early on, 40s, and then it not show up until later. Is there something we can do early on in our 40s and 50s to kind of either prevent it or at least slow the progress of Alzheimer's?
That's a lot of what we're researching right now, and it's actually about lifestyle intervention. We know that there is a healthy brain and a healthy body connection for sure. So, eating the right things like people have talked about the Mediterranean diet, things like that can be very healthy for you. Keeping your heart healthy is huge for this. We know that 80% of individuals with Alzheimer's have a comorbidity, meaning they have another disease that they're trying to treat as well, like diabetes, like high blood pressure. So we know that keeping your body healthy is linked to keeping your brain healthy, but it's more than that. It's also socialization. We see a lot of seniors as they start to age, they get really comfortable at home watching their shows. The only time they see anybody is when the grandbabies come to visit. That's not great for your brain. You need
Wow.
to get out and talk to people. You also need to try and keep your brain active. Things like doing a crossword puzzle, something that you haven't necessarily done before, word searches. Those are exercising your brain just like you'd exercise your body. So those are things that we know in the 40s and 50s. We really push individuals to try. The Alzheimer's Association provides a training that's free for anybody who wants it, for groups, church groups, women's groups, book clubs, called Healthy Habits for Your Brain and Body. And it's a really great training because it lets you know what you can do to try and maybe prevent the onset of a cognitive decline. And then I'll also mention that there is a web page on DHEC called Take Brain Health to Heart that has all of these tips that I would recommend that people visit. It really talks about those different options, like, you got to give up smoking, and maybe you don't drink the whole bottle of wine. Maybe you only have a couple glasses. And I know that's hard during COVID, but maybe it's just one or two. So it really does go through, it's that link of healthy brain, healthy body. And really treat your body, like you want to keep it around for
Yeah.
70, 80 years.
Yeah, so much we continue to hear about how what you eat lifestyle affects everything. And I guess it's always so surprising how much that impacts everything. I think people know, okay, I know eating bad is going to make me overweight. I know it may even now, affect my blood sugar, my diabetes. But even to hear that what you eat affects your memory loss, and in this case, Alzheimer's, is really so interesting. So interesting. So then let me ask a couple of things here. what is, and you mentioned the Mediterranean diet, what is a good diet? And again, of course, so is it just the basics, eat more fruits and vegetables, eat less sugar, like we hear for everything?
I think I wish I had better options for that. I wish I could say no, ice cream's totally okay, because that would make me happy. But it really is about your cardiovascular health and your brain health. The best recommendations that we have is talk to your physician. If they've got some recommendations around what will specifically support your body health, they know you better than anyone. They know if you're battling high blood pressure. High blood pressure, we may actually tell you to drink one more glass of wine to lower that stress. We may, if it's sodium retention, things like that, anything that's going to be linked to your heart health and your brain health, your physician's going to have the best idea. So have a conversation with them. But also, we're in the middle of a 6-continent study called the MIND study. And this is, we've got countries in South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, who are all participating in how lifestyle intervention can make a difference. And what comes out of that study is actually going to drive the dietary recommendations moving forward. But that's a giant undertaking where they're following these folks for years. But it's people who are at a higher risk of developing a cognitive decline. So they're following the people who are just like you and I, not the healthy athletes, the people who just are going about their daily lives. And if there is something about their lifestyle intervention that particularly reduces their risk, then we're going to shout that far and wide, because we know, again, if this is starting to develop in your brain in your 40s and 50s,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of time to get in front of it.
Yeah.
Because it's never too late to change.
Absolutely. That's right, Taylor. This is Taylor Wilson. She is with the National Alzheimer's Association. You're watching Wellness Wednesday on Coping with COVID in it together. SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. And Taylor, you made mention of, something that we talk about here a lot on Wellness Wednesday, which is that when you, are not managing your diabetes, your heart disease, high blood pressure, so many other things are affected by those things. And, and we're not trying to say it's simple, but it is achievable if we just make some different choices, right or wrong, I don't know, but it's at least different choices about how we live our lives, what we put into our bodies. And again, just to hear that even Alzheimer's could affect you because, as you say, you have these pre-existing conditions. I mean, we continue to hear why more and more and more we need to be so much more conscious, because everybody wants to, I think, live a better quality of life.
Absolutely. And the whole thing is that the quality of life is directly related to both your brain and your body.
Yeah.
Because if your brain is healthy, but you can't be mobile, you're not living your best life. But if you're mobile, but you can't make memories or recognize where you are.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the thing, is that you got to keep them both healthy.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned folks that obviously have the pre-existing conditions. That's one group of people. And we were talking about diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, hypertension. It affects that group of people. It even affects, of course, people who are of a certain age. And again, from what you said, it could be affecting you even earlier than you think. So is there anyone else that Alzheimer's really affects?
So this also, we know, disproportionately affects African Americans and Hispanic, Latinx communities. And so we're really trying to push right now, the Alzheimer's Association, about trying to work on getting more African Americans and more Latinx populations into clinical trials. Because the truth is, we need to understand, number one, why this is occurring.
Right.
Is it related to health disparities? Probably. Is it related to, access to medical professionals? Absolutely.
Yeah.
South Carolina is the 3rd largest neurology desert in America.
Wow.
A neurology desert means that per the population that needs access to a neurologist, there's not any around. And if you've ever been in this situation like my family was, my grandmother had dementia. It was a 6-month wait to get in to see a neurologist when we first went to get her diagnosed. By then, she had progressed so much further than what her original symptoms were. It was like seeing a different patient. And then by the time he got to her, he was like, I can't do anything for her. Well, if you had seen her 6 months ago, could we have gotten her on a drug that would have maybe kept her cognition a little better for a little while? Probably. So is it access? We're an 80% rural state. Yeah. So is that going to be an issue? So first of all, we've got to research what's the barriers to access and why this is disproportionately affecting those populations. But also, we can't find a treatment or even a cure if we're not including all of the populations that it impacts. So the Alzheimer's Association right now is promoting a federal bill called ENACT, which is the Equity in Neuroscience and Alzheimer's Clinical Trial Act. It's a huge acronym. But it's essentially trying to work on getting into more diverse populations to bring these individuals to reduce the barriers and the stigma associated with clinical trials so that we can start to have a better representation of all populations, specifically those who are at a higher risk, in our research so that we can make better decisions and better recommendations.
Oh, that's huge, girl, because I think we've seen definitely because of COVID, the trials, so many things with that. First, the lack of Black and brown people in the trials. So of course, I'm so glad to hear that there's a push because we've got to first, as you say, deal with the stigma attached, the pre-existing, you talking about pre-existing conditions, pre-existing mind of thoughts of valid concerns. Valid concerns for the minority community. But we'd like to think that the medical advancement has been such that there are not those concerns or not those issues anymore, that these are safe trials that Black and brown people can feel comfortable in participating in, and knowing that the only way we can even make any medical advancement for Black and brown people is to participate in the trials, because everyone's DNA and genetic makeup is different. So you've got to test on someone of a specific or various ethnic backgrounds to know if the trial or the medication, the treatment works on that specific, ethnicity.
Absolutely. The other thing I would mention is that the Alzheimer's Association runs something called Trial Match. You can go to trialmatch.com. And essentially it matches you with local trials that are happening in your area. But the benefit here is sometimes they're just surveys. So if you don't feel like you are ready to be tested on with medicines or placebos or anything like that, start out small. Start out by taking the lifestyle surveys. It's anonymous. Put in there what you're doing with your daily life. If you're having cognitive decline, are you having a hard time remembering, when you go into work, what you were supposed to be doing today? Have you ever walked into the bathroom and felt like you didn't know where you were in your own house or get turned around directionally?
Yeah, me. Yeah.
And some of that is just being stressed out and having too much on your plate.
Yes.
But is it, can we do a link? So if you want to just do surveys, start out and get to know the researchers. Start out and get to know how you're treated as a research trial patient. And don't do it with necessarily the biology. Do it with just answers on surveys.
Yeah.
That's how I started. And I feel very comfortable now that I understand how it works. I also recommend anybody who's been a granddaughter or a daughter or a son. First of all, we know that there's a genetic link. But then second of all, think about how it could maybe change your granddaughter's life. Because the reason that I fight so hard is because I never want another granddaughter to lose their mama like I lost mine.
Yeah.
And so it's up to us to kind of have to sit there and go, all right, I guess I got to be the guinea pig now. And so you fill out some surveys, you answer the phone and talk to somebody once every 6 months. You decide that you're going to eat carrots every day if that's part of the study that you're in, and you eat carrots every day and maybe that changes something. But that's a lot of it. So if you want to start out small, that's always an option, something I highly recommend because it made me understand the process a lot better. And it actually was a lot of fun because you get to see some of the results of what you've been a part of.
That's awesome. Trialmatch.com if people want more information. And I love that you say that's a great way to start participating in the research process is to do a survey. And everybody can do that. Trialmatch.com for more information on the survey, some of the surveys that you can utilize to participate in to find out more about treatments and some different advancements that can be made with Alzheimer's. I love that, Taylor. We're talking to Taylor Wilson. She's with the Alzheimer's Association. You're watching Wellness Wednesday on Coping with COVID and It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor, and we're talking about Alzheimer's. So it affects Black and brown people more. And like you said, is it genetics? Is it a lifestyle? Who knows? But again, there's research and you can help. And then, of course, people who have the pre-existing conditions, diabetes, heart disease, and blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. Those are the three big ones. And it also affects folks. I'm trying to remember the first one that you said. Black and brown, diabetes. I don't know. Was it somebody? Oh, that it can start when you're as early, when you're as young as 40 years old, and it's genetic. It's also genetic. So if someone else in your family had Alzheimer's, you could have it also. How close? Your mom, your grandmother?
So that depends on how the genetics are passed down. And unfortunately, I'm not one of the scientists. They just tell me what to say. But we do know that there's one gene that has been identified called the APOE4 gene. And if you have one of those markers, you're 25% increased risk than somebody who has none of those markers. If you have both, you're at a 75% increase.
Wow.
And so we do know that there's a strong genetic link. Again, speaking for my family, my grandmother had multiple siblings that came from a very large farm family, and all of them have had dementia.
Wow.
All of them. So when you start to look at that, that's a very strong genetic match. So for her family, at least, we know that they probably had both APOE4 genes. And so that means coming down to me, I probably have a greater risk as well. So it's one of those things where I think that, you can look at family history, but you also have to look at how you're living your lifestyle.
Right now. Lifestyle was the other thing. Yeah. Lifestyle,
right.
what you're eating. Yes. That's the other thing is what you're eating. Are you exercising? You mentioned doing puzzles, keeping your brain active, eating the right things, so how does it affect people? Taylor, I want to talk about that because I recently had a very dear aunt who just recently passed away from Alzheimer's. But the interesting thing is it's so much more than just memory.
That's
And that was amazing to me, I think, because we hear more about the memory issue with Alzheimer's patients and don't hear or even expect as family members other things.
That's right. And I think that the other thing is that that's when you get back to what you originally asked me to explain, which is what's Alzheimer's versus what's dementia.
Yeah.
So Alzheimer's is very specific, but dementia has a bunch of different things that could be happening with you. So my grandmother had what's called mixed dementia, which was vascular and Alzheimer's. So she had really bad memory problems. She also had spatial issues. So she had black and white checkered kitchen floor. She thought that the black checkers were holes.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So when she was trying to walk through her kitchen, it looked like she was hopping.
Freaks her out. Yeah. That would freak me out.
It would, and can you imagine you're already older, you don't have great balance, and you think these are holes. And so massive anxiety. And people kept wondering why she wasn't going into the kitchen. And finally one day I realized, I took her in there and I said, "What do you see?" And she said, "Holes, holes, 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 holes." And I went, "It's spatial reasoning. She can't see this." So I went and got white duct tape
to cover the holes.
Covered the holes, and then she went in there like nothing happened. So that's one of them. The other is not really forgetting, but not being able to have an understanding of objects, how objects work. So forks and knives all of a sudden become very foreign. How am I supposed to hold this? And that's when we start seeing issues with them feeding themselves, but they don't want to look silly. They don't want to alarm anyone. So they just don't eat.
They don't eat. Yeah.
So I noticed my grandmother had stopped eating. So I started bringing finger food. So I would go to Blizzard's Thicket and get, like fried chicken and okra and things that we could use that she could
Her
pick up from
hand.
trailers.
Oh, I love that.
And then we didn't have to run into that issue anymore because you don't want to ever embarrass them either. This is not them. They have lived a life where they have raised you. They have probably raised your parents.
That's right.
They have purchased their own home. They have lived through incredible hardships. They deserve respect and autonomy.
Yeah.
So you don't ever want to embarrass them. It's not about, oh, you don't know what you're doing, let me help. It's, how can I work around this?
Yeah.
So that they do not feel like we have done anything to minimize them as people. And so that's a big part of understanding what their symptoms are. My grandmother, we thought she had some Lewy body dementia, and that causes massive hallucinations. So she thought that she saw people outside of her window at night and would be very afraid. So I just got her blackout curtains. So the blackout curtains meant she couldn't see out, so people couldn't see in. It's about working with their disease, not against them.
But this is the piece with that, and I love all of those suggestions. I mean, that's just so simple to do. Those are so many simple solutions, and even for you to say, Taylor, listen, we're all aging. That's the first thing. So you already have to deal with, I am aging. I don't look the way I used to look. I can't do the same things. But then on top of that, you're having some additional challenges with your memory, the spatial thing, all of these things. So we have to recognize that your pride, your self-esteem, all of that also plays a part in it. So as you said, if you would just, I don't know. And I'm sure, I guess the Alzheimer's Association has these resources available. And we're going to talk with someone later on in the show to help us navigate how to handle, someone as a family member with Alzheimer's. But it's knowing what to do, because you had a couple of steps on it because you're with the Alzheimer's Association. You know what I mean?
Right.
So where are the resources available to do these common sense for somebody that knows them things to do,
Right. Well, the first thing is I got hired in August and she got diagnosed in October. So I wasn't here long enough to really get on board. But what I did hear specifically was from one of the key people, Dr. Macy Smith did a presentation who essentially explained that you have to be with them through this journey. It's not about taking them with you. And because of that, it was just really important for me to try and be there with her. But the great thing about it is the Alzheimer's Association has trainings. There's something called effective communication strategies. That's a training, again, we are tailor-made for you. Because if I'm talking to Trey Taylor and my name's Taylor Wilson, I had to make the joke.
Right. I love that. I got it, girl.
But, you can call us and say, hey, listen, I have a group of 10 women in my sorority, and we want to talk about effective communication strategies because we're all facing it. Your church, if you just want to get together, we've done organizations. Everybody in my bank wants us to do this training. Come over. As long as you can get 10 people together, we'll come out and do whatever training you want us to do, absolutely free. Yeah. And so if you want to do effective communication strategies, that's available as well. We also do virtual trainings. And then we have, and we highlight one each month. And then we have virtual support groups where support group leaders can walk you through a behavior that may be really difficult. My grandmother's sundowning was so bad that she used to try and put, she was afraid that bugs were going to get into the cupboard, and she would wad up like paper towels and shut them into her cabinets at 3 a.m. Holy cow. And so you're caregiving and you're like, I have to go to work tomorrow. I love you so much. But
you got to go to bed.
Something's got to give. And so I talked to one of my support group leader because I was in support group at the time. And they said, she's probably feeling not useful because you're doing everything for her. You're not wearing her out. I know you think she's sick, but it's just up here. It's not in here. And she wants to take care of y'all. And so I had been doing everything for her. I was so afraid, she was fragile.
Yeah.
And this woman had been working all her life. So I put her to work, wash the dishes, sweep the floor, here's how we're going to pretend cook dinner, you know, like,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And then she'd go to bed and sleep the whole night. And I was like, so support group leaders and support group
I
members
love
can
it.
really help you with that. And then I will say individuals who are facing an early stage diagnosis, either with your spouse or your sister or your brother or yourself, we have early stage groups that help people who are facing it, because right now Alzheimer's disease doesn't have a cure. It is 100% fatal. We know that it's going to end their life. And if that's the case, you really need to circle your wagons. You need some fellowship and you need some real support from people who actually understand what it's like to have it. So we also have early stage groups so that you can come in and get the support you need. So the Alzheimer's Association has resources, alz.org/SC, because that's specific to South Carolina. But if you're watching from somewhere else, of course, you can always go to alz.org.
Right. You can see the information on the screen, alz.org/SC for information, resources. Taylor gave so much great information, so many great tips. And all of that information not only is on the website, but as she said, connections for you to get together with your family, with your friends, with your church, any group of people that need this information, that may have a friend or family member that is dealing with Alzheimer's. And you're a caregiver, you're a friend, you're a family member, you're someone that wants to get the information to help you and the person that is dealing with Alzheimer's. Please contact her and get the information out. I'm Trey Taylor. You're watching Wellness Wednesday on Coping with COVID. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. We're going to come right back with a Taylor and talk more about the new treatment that has been in the news. You may have heard about it, that is going to treat Alzheimer's, and also with hurricane season coming up. We've heard a lot about the floods, and even we're here in South Carolina where it is famously hot. There are some concerns you need to be thinking about in reference to the family members and friends, your loved ones who have Alzheimer's. We're going to tell you about all of that. And coming up next on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor. We'll be right back.
You can eat what's good to you and good for you, too.
Yes.
Get the Dash for Southern Soul cookbook free. All you have to do is ask. It's packed with delicious Southern-style recipes with a healthy twist.
Yummy.
You won't be able to taste the difference, but you will be able to feel the difference.
Yeah.
Inbox your email address to the In It Together or Tailor Made Productions Facebook page, and you'll get it straight to your mailbox. The Dash for Southern Style cookbook and a Coping with COVID face mask. From In It Together SC, the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina, and Coping with COVID.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Let Palmetto Painting Services take the worry out of your next home painting project. We can paint anything. Our business is about interior painting and exterior painting. We offer services for residential and commercial properties. Restore the life to your home with a fresh coat of paint from Palmetto Painting Services. References are available upon request. Give us a call at 803-546-4570 today.
The Comet gives me a reliable source of transportation.
It's very convenient to me, and they have wonderful drivers.
It's clean and it builds community. It's fun to meet people.
It makes me feel like really independent. It's just fun.
It's always going to be there and it gets me everywhere I need to go.
We try to ride every single day. Comedy is our livelihood.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
I'm Trey Taylor, and you're watching Coping with COVID. In it together, SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Hey, don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Why don't you go over there and hit like and share and follow. Man, they've got some great resources on that In It Together Facebook page, diabetes prevention programs, tips, recipes, all types of great information. Don't forget to like it and check it out. We're also streaming live on the Tailor Made production page. It's the home of Coping with COVID. Go over there and like and hit follow and share also, so that you can watch Coping with COVID Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also on the first Monday with comedian George Wallace. I want to say hi to folks joining us on YouTube. We're streaming live there too. Please hit the subscribe button, and also on Instagram and Twitter. Taylor Wilson joins us. She is with the Alzheimer's Association. We've been having a fascinating conversation about Alzheimer's. So much good information, just enlightening information about Alzheimer's. If you are just joining us, you'll want to hit the replay button so that you can check out the information that you missed. So Taylor, you mentioned in the last segment that, I mean, and you said it very matter-of-factly, that Alzheimer's is fatal. Why is that?
So Alzheimer's has a lot of different issues that can come into play, including things like once we hit the later stages, individuals are no longer able to move around. So we have issues with wound care, treatment, infection, things like that. Also, individuals will forget what it feels like to be hungry. Eventually, we forget our swallowing reflex. So you have a lot of aspiration. And a lot of individuals, I mean, your brain shrinks so much that it actually starts to affect your ability to just function. And unfortunately, that is an incredibly difficult way to lose a loved one. And we know that caregivers across the country watch this on a daily basis. And it's interesting that these individuals, I always tell everybody that I have some of the biggest warriors, is that these individuals can watch their loved one shrinking, and they're still out here advocating. They're still out here doing our walk to end Alzheimer's. Okay. They're still doing, fundraising for the longest day. They're still out here because they know they're not going to save their loved one. Their loved one is leaving them, but they don't want this to happen to anyone else.
Anybody else, yeah.
Right. And that's the big thing, is that right now Alzheimer's has 0 survivors. And every person I know who's ever loved somebody who had this disease, that is our number one goal, is our first survivor. Where's our first survivor? And maybe they've already been born. Maybe they're in kindergarten right now, and that's, I tell people I work to put myself out of a job. And if I do, I'll happily go, Yeah. So while there's no survivors right now, we believe and we have hope that there will one day be in our lifetime.
Yeah. Please go back and hit the replay button, because there, like I said, there's so much great information that that Taylor has shared. One, that you could start seeing some symptoms as early as 40 years old. And it's about, as Taylor said, lifestyle changes. And listen, this is stuff we hear all the time. Your mom told you this: eat right, exercise. It also affects Black and brown people, African Americans, and the Latinx community more than other ethnicities. Also, folks that have pre-existing conditions, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. It affects that demographic of people more. But again, and also it's genetic. So if someone in your family had it, you could have it. But you can at least slow the process by making the right choices as early as possible. So, Taylor, we are living in famously hot Columbia, South Carolina. I was just telling somebody today, I think it's hotter in Columbia than anywhere in South Carolina. I wouldn't say anywhere on the earth, but maybe it's definitely humid, more humid. But there are some concerns for people with Alzheimer's in the hot weather. Tell us about that. What do we need to be concerned about, looking for?
So I love a good cookout with everybody else. And I know Labor Day's coming up, so everybody's going to be bringing their loved ones together. They may be going to the beach. And something that's really important to remember is somebody who has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia may not be able to tell you when they're getting too hot. That's a big part of it. They may not be able to tell you when they're feeling a little woozy. They may not be able to tell you that they haven't gone to the bathroom or that they've stopped sweating. So you're really in charge of making sure that if you're going to include your loved one in these gatherings, and I 100% recommend you do, because it's very fun for them to see everyone and to feel a part of something. but you have to be really, really closely monitoring them. Having somebody really on top of their health and their heat is really important. Making sure they're putting in a lot of fluids.
Right.
You got to make sure you keep them hydrated. Also they can't tell you if they're getting sunburned. They can't tell you if they're feeling discomfort. So it's either put them in the shade or make sure they have a big sun hat. Make sure you're the one who's putting on their sunscreen. And also, they're not going to be able to stay the whole 8 hours at an event like this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
also, as I age, I don't want to stay 8 hours in some of those.
Right.
Feed me, fellowship, send me home. That's going to be what they need, So just remember. Also, a good thing to remember if you're taking anyone out in extreme heat like this, you may be messing up their routine. So if you're outside, you have to make sure they're not going to wander, because agitation means that they're going to want to walk away sometimes. So that's another thing, is that because if they do get lost in this extreme heat that we're experiencing, they don't have any water with them. They don't know that they're getting overheated. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke is a real risk. So it's always a really good idea to make sure that when you have somebody outside, again, take them to family events, take them to cookouts, but really keep an eye on them, because they can't tell you when they're feeling discomfort all the time.
So I want to ask you this. You said they can't tell you. If you ask them, can they tell you? I mean, should you just kind of continue to say, hey, look, like I do with my 3-year-old, do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you have to go to that? Does that help?
That does help if you just, and what's really great about it is, instead of asking them questions, because sometimes when you have somebody who has dementia, questions make them confused, you say, I'm going to the bathroom. Do you want to come with me?
Good.
I'm going to have a water. I'm going to give you some too. And so you make it a joint opportunity.
Yeah.
So then it's not, they don't know, well, is this the right decision or not? It's, you're going to go with them.
Yes.
So it always makes them feel a lot better when, I'm going to put on sunscreen. I'm going to put some on you too. That always helps them feel a little bit better, because they don't have to make a decision. They don't know if it's, going to be the right or wrong one.
And I'm sure it also doesn't make them feel like you are alienating them or overly doing something for them too. Because again, like we said in the first segment, you're talking about someone for the most part that may be a little bit elderly. So, you want to think about their pride and their self-esteem too,
Right. You don't want to patronize them, but it also keeps you hydrated. When you think about it, if you're constantly worried about somebody else drinking water and you're drinking water with them, you're putting your sunscreen on just as often as you're putting it on them. It actually improves your health. Yeah. And that's a big thing, is that as a caregiver, we have a tendency to really ignore our own health. But you really have to start integrating that, because that's really a key component of this, because you can't pour from an empty cup. They keep saying that, but it's absolutely true.
It's so true. And we can't, as caregivers, and I say this as for, even if you are a parent or a caregiver of an elderly person, whatever the age or condition is, it's so important to take care of yourself too. And you say you can't pour from an empty cup, but it's so easy to keep going. And you almost feel, and this is a whole different conversation, Taylor, but you almost feel selfish because you're giving of you're doing something for yourself as though you are taking away from the person you're caring from. But it's so important, girl. I'm talking to myself while I'm talking about it, because like you said, you cannot take care of anyone if you have not taken care of yourself. Self-care is important. And self-care doesn't only mean make sure you eat, make sure you sleep, make sure you have me time. Make sure you get a chance to go to the spa, get your nails done, or do nothing. Go to a concert, do whatever you need to do. Enjoy yourself too. You need that time for yourself.
We also have an Alzheimer's caregiver respite voucher for exactly what you're talking about. And I think it's really important. Alzheimer's caregiver respite voucher is available regardless of financial status or age. It just needs a dementia diagnosis. You can get it through your local area agency on aging. GetCareSC.com will tell you what that AAA is, that area agency on aging. It's called GetCareSC.com. But you can ask for the Alzheimer's caregiver respite voucher, and they will give you a voucher to bring a sitter into your home, so you can go to the grocery store, go and get your hair done, take some me time, and that's something that we really are very proud of in the state of South Carolina. We're one of the few states that have that as a program. So if you're in South Carolina and we can help, reach out about it, because it's available.
That is amazing, girl. GetCareSC.com. That is so good, because that's the other thing, if you're a caregiver, you sometimes don't know who to turn to give you a break, you know? A lot of times some people are doing it themselves. I mean, these are just so many great resources that we're putting up on the screen for you. Now, we talked about some of the concerns for Alzheimer's patients during when it's hot and when, it's the sun is out. But, we're getting ready to come up on hurricane season in South Carolina. And then, we see, unfortunately, some of the people, in Louisiana that are dealing with floods. What are some of the concerns that we need to be conscientious about as far as that's concerned, and in the cold weather?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is in hurricane season, our coastal communities, we know, may have to do an evacuation at any time or make a decision to evacuate. If you're a caregiver for somebody who has dementia, the first thing you do is you have to be prepared well in advance. If you know you live in a coastal community, go ahead and make your plan. And it's a plan that has things like copies of medical records. It's a plan that has, do I have a way to grab medicine fast and get out of the house? It is a plan of where are we going to go? And are those people going to be able to house us for a week or so?
Right.
Because the things that you don't need to lose when you have a dementia patient are things like access to water and sewer, access to clean food, but then also access to security. Yeah. So, those kind of things have to be a part of that. Have a plan ahead. If you're going to a shelter that has numerous people, when you get there, you're going to want to make the disclosure to the individuals running that facility that the person that you have with you has dementia. You're going to give them a picture of that person with dementia. Ask them to write them down as a potential wandering risk. That way, if they see that person without you, they can prevent them from going outside, which could potentially be, like we saw in Louisiana, a Category 4 storm.
Right.
That's crazy. The flooding, the risks, the risk of tree falling, different things like that. You want to keep them inside. But then also, if you're going to a hotel, you're going to another family member's house, it's about trying to reestablish the routine that you may have broken them out of, which means that you need to feed them at the same time. You need to sleep at the same time. Regardless of where you are, getting them back into that routine is going to reduce and minimize those behaviors, which could be dangerous for them. So plan ahead. Make sure you take everything that you need to, including medical records and medicine. And then also make sure you disclose to whoever is running that front door, if you see this individual without me, you need to try and keep them here, and then you need to call me. And so, wandering is a great risk all the time, but wandering in a new place where they don't know how to get back is even more dangerous. We know that within 24 hours, wandering goes from being a missing person to potentially a dead person. And so it is one of the most dangerous behaviors that can be exhibited by an individual who has dementia. Minimize that risk by just taking your precautions. But if you do have to evacuate, also evacuate soon. Don't wait until the last minute to make that decision, unfortunately. And then, of course, as usual, always go to the Alzheimer's Association has an entire web page devoted to safety tips. And it's not just for hurricane season, extreme heat, like you said, extreme cold. When you go into extreme cold situations, wandering just as dangerous. Individuals who wander can get frostbite. They can succumb to the elements. So it's really just important to know what your safety tips should be. But again, make a plan. Always plan ahead. And the Alzheimer's Association has some options to help you there.
So Taylor, should you then also tell the person kind of what's going on? Hey, we're getting ready to do this. We're getting ready to do that. Kind of explain to them what's happening.
Absolutely. And don't get frustrated if you have to explain it 5
times. Yeah.
20 times. My grandmother one time asked me every 5 minutes when my dad was coming to get her for 20 minutes. And so I know it's overwhelming to have to repeat yourself. You have to remember that you're scared. They're even more scared because you know what's going on.
Right.
They have no idea, and they're wholly dependent on you to be their understanding. So it's really about also taking a deep breath, planning ahead, and moving through your plan. And that's really the best part of it is having a plan means that you don't have to question yourself. You just move.
Yeah. We've been talking to Taylor Wilson with the Alzheimer's Association of South Carolina about, just the facts, information. Really, we've been doing Alzheimer's 101. Who gets it, how it affects them, how it affects you, what you need to do. There's been recent news about a new breakthrough drug, Taylor, for Alzheimer's. Tell us about that.
So it's called, this is drug names always trip me up, but I'll practice this one. It's aducanumab. And essentially what the research
Easy for you to say, but go ahead.
but so the name that it's going by on the market is Aduhelm. And so essentially what this treatment does is it is removing those beta amyloid plaques that I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's removing them from the brain. So remember how I said it was like an azalea bush and the ivy was crawling through? It's wiping those out. So imagine you found this beautiful azalea bush. You can't kill the ivy because it's got deep roots, but I can pull out some of the ivy vines that are choking out parts of my azalea bush. I can save my azalea for longer.
Right.
That's the idea of Aduhelm or aducanumab, is that it is going to clear out those beta amyloid plaques to give people more time. It is a treatment. It is not a cure for Alzheimer's disease, but is the first treatment of its kind to come out that actually addresses the biology of the disease. And it's the first treatment that's come out since 2003 that's actually going to address your cognition. So this is a really big development. You know, since 2003, we've had the same drugs to treat it, and it didn't actually change the biology of the disease. It just supercharged your neurons so that it made your brain more powerful to push through those amyloid plaques and tangles. This removes them. So it gives people more time. And so also it being the first kind of treatment in decades, now we've got a renewed interest in the scientific community to come back in dementia research and to start on new ideas. And because of this, we've left the door wide open. So we know that Aduhelm has already gotten approval, but there are others in the pipeline, and that's huge. It's not, we know this isn't going to be the end treatment. This is right now, this is the first. And anytime you're trying to make it to a finish line, which is our first survivor for us, you got to take the first step. Right. And that's what aducanumab is.
So who is eligible? Who is this treatment for?
So this was initially tested on individuals who have mild cognitive decline. Okay. So this would be
early stages?
Very, very early stages. We know that this is not going to be something that brings cognition back. That's not actually something that we can do. But this particularly is for mild cognitive impairment, so early stages, and specifically those with Alzheimer's, because if you remember, dementia is an umbrella term, so a bunch of different diseases can cause dementia. This specifically addresses one of the key hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, which is that amyloid plaque. So only Alzheimer's disease, only with mild cognitive impairment so far. And so that's going to be early stage specifically.
Have they started administering it to people?
So the rollout is going to be quite slow. I know that COVID has created some of those issues with the pipeline, but it has already been administered at a few hospitals. Okay. So we know it's rolling out. It's also been being administered in the clinical trials for years. Some were being tested for 18 months of the treatment. Some have been tested over, many years for the treatment. So it's now rolling out, but you need to talk to your physician, just like with any type of medical treatment for any disease. You need to talk to your physician. You need to have a real conversation with them about if this is right for you, if they feel like this is something you're eligible for.
Is this a pill?
It is not. It is an infusion. So it's about an hour every 4 weeks. And
every 4 weeks.
Right. And so you're going to get infusions. It's not known how many doses it will take, if you need to be on it continuously or not. But for right now, we do have infusions. And so that's going to be, you have to go to a doctor's office in order to be able to access it. And that probably means that you're going to need a referral.
Right. So if people want more information about it, they should talk to their physician.
Absolutely. Talk to your physician. Yes, absolutely. Talk to your physician. And again, explore if you want to get a second opinion. Your physician says, no, I don't think this is right for you, and you want to talk to somebody else, always get a second opinion on anything that you're looking at. But it's one of those things that it's very important to have medical guidance on.
Yeah. Does insurance cover it, Taylor?
So Right now, we're not sure if insurance is going to cover it, and that's something that the Alzheimer's Association is dedicated to working with them on, along with Medicare and Medicaid. So you'll see a lot of things in the coming months where Alzheimer's Association is working very hard to ensure that it's covered by Medicare, and also working with the insurance companies to explain to them why it is so important and how it actually can help them in the long run with the amount of hospital stays and different things that they have to cover, because we also know that hospitalizations linked to dementia, they're much higher in their patients. So, it's about explaining to them how giving someone more time with their family and their cognition at the end of the day comes down to money for some folks.
Yeah.
It saves them money. So the Alzheimer's Association is already working with those individuals, and we will continue both Medicare and private pay.
Yeah. Taylor Wilson, the Director of State Policy, the Alzheimer's Association of South Carolina. You can see the 1-800 number and also the email address, and of course the website for more information, not only about this, but about several resources. We've got the resources page up here also for you to get the information you need for yourself so that you can possibly help prevent or postpone the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So you can do what you need to do right now for you, your friends, and your family to combat Alzheimer's, and of course, so that you can help the folks that are that have Alzheimer's, your loved ones and your family. If you're a caregiver, so many resources available for the Alzheimer's Association. Taylor, this has been such a fascinating conversation about something that affects so many people, not only globally, but here in South Carolina. So we need to know the information and get it out. Thank you so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. And thank you so much for all of these great resources. Like I said, it's been fascinating. It's really been very eye-opening.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Taylor Wilson with the Alzheimer's Association. Listen, if you have a initiative or a story that could help someone cope with COVID, please go to the Taylor Made production page and inbox me. We would love to feature you on Coping with COVID. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, the information is on the screen. Email copingwithtreytaylor@gmail.com. We would love for you to be a proud sponsor of Coping with COVID, just like SCDHEC, In It Together SC, and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina that present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID, and of course, all of our other sponsors. Preparedness. Mandy with the American Red Cross is going to join us and talk a little bit about hurricane preparedness. Melody Cook, Direct Service Manager with the American Red Cross. Plus, have you heard about the White Dinner? It has been sweeping the nation. Dinner en bloc. It's coming to Columbia, South Carolina. Bianca Shelton is going to join us to tell us about that. And then Faith Friday, we'll talk with Reverend Carrie Grady with Reed Chapel Church about his COVID outreach, and also Dr. Kimberly John Ha. Do you know what a kinship caregiver is? It's probably something that your family did for years and you didn't know it had a name to it. It's when you care for somebody that is not, that's a member of your family or just somebody else, and you bring them into your home. Something you've done all your life, right? Well, Dr. Kimberly John Ha is an executive director of a great organization, Kindred Heart. She's going to share with us all of the great outreach she's doing for kinship caregivers, and going to announce some COVID pandemic relief money for kinship caregivers. That's coming up Friday on Faith Friday, right here on Coping with COVID. As always, I'm going to leave you with a reading from Jesus Calling. It's September 1st, and Jesus says, "Seek me with your whole being, because I desire to be found by you. I orchestrate the events of your life with that purpose in mind. When things go well and you feel blessed, you can feel me smiling on you. When you encounter rough patches along your life journey, trust that my light is still shining on you. My reasons for allowing these adversities may be shrouded in mystery, but my continual presence is an absolute promise. Seek me in good times. Seek me in hard times. You will find me watching over you all the time. That's your Jesus Calling for today, Wednesday, September 1st. I'm Trey Taylor. Until the next time, I wish you peace and abundant blessings. Please stay safe, be careful, wear your mask over your nose and under your chin, and get your vaccine. I'll see you later.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.